Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tech Talk Central. I'm Nathan,
And I'm Sarah.
and today we're diving deep.
Into the world of compact soundbars.
That's right, we're talking about those sleek little soundbars that don't take up a ton of space.
But still manage to deliver.
A pretty amazing audio experience.
Exactly.
So for this deep dive, you shared some research on a couple of popular models that we should definitely talk about.
Yeah.
The Bose Smart Dolby Atmos soundbar
Yes.
and the Sony HTS-2000,
Both great options.
both getting a lot of attention
Not a buzz.
for their size and capabilities.
Definitely.
So where should we start?
Well, I think the Bose is a good place to start because they really are leaning into this idea of immersive audio.
Okay.
You know, they even use the phrase shockingly immersive sound for its size.
Bold statement.
It is a bold statement, but, they are backing it up with Dolby Atmos and their own true space technology.
Okay, so I know Dolby Atmos is kind of like the gold standard
Yes.
for home theater these days.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I'll admit that sometimes the technical stuff,
It can get a little complicated.
it goes over my head a little bit.
Yeah.
So how does this true space technology kind of play into that?
Yeah.
And can a compact soundbar really deliver that kind of immersive Dolby Atmos experience?
Well, and that's what's so fascinating about True Space is that it's not just about playing Dolby Atmos content.
Okay.
It actually analyzes all the incoming audio signals, even if you're watching something older. Like a movie or a show that wasn't made with Atmos.
Right.
And it upmixes them to create a virtual surround sound experience.
So even if I'm watching like a classic movie from the 90s, I could still get that sense of sound coming from all directions.
You got it. And they achieve this with 5 transducers packed into that little soundbar.
Okay, so 5 transducers, what does that even mean? I'm picturing like tiny little speakers or something?
Yeah, think of them like mini speakers.
Correct.
And 2 of them are specifically angled upwards. That's how they create the illusion of sounds coming from overhead. Like, if a helicopter's flying over you in a movie.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So it's bouncing the sound off the ceiling.
Exactly.
That's cool. And I remember reading something about Bose having like a special mode for dialogue too.
Yes.
Because sometimes with action movies, it's so hard to hear what people are saying.
Right. And they have this AI dialogue mode.
Okay.
And it uses some fancy processing to isolate voices and make them clearer.
Got it.
So even when there's explosions and chaos happening all around you, you'll still be able to hear those crucial plot points.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So it seems like the Bose is really focused on that immersive movie experience.
Definitely.
But what if I want to like switch gears and listen to some music?
Yeah.
Can it handle that too?
Oh, for sure. The Bose is very versatile in terms of connectivity.
Okay.
You've got Bluetooth, Apple AirPlay 2, Spotify Connect, even Chromecast built in.
Oh, wow.
So you can stream music from your phone, your tablet, computer.
Nice.
No problem.
Good, because I use a mix of streaming services,
Yeah.
depending on what mood I'm in.
Makes sense.
Speaking of different moods, let's move on to the Sony HTS-2000.
Okay.
From what I've read, it also supports Dolby Atmos,
Yes, it does.
but it takes a little bit of a different approach
Yeah, different approach.
to creating that surround sound feel.
It does. So instead of relying on those up-firing speakers like the Bose,
Right.
the Sony uses a combination of what they call their vertical surround engine
Okay.
and S-Force PRO front surround technologies.
Catchy names.
Catchy names, right?
So it's all about creating that sense of spaciousness and immersion,
Yeah.
but through audio processing rather than...
Right. More like tricking your ears into thinking the sound is coming from more places than it actually is.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And they've also packed in a feature that, really sets this Sony apart from the Bose.
Okay.
Built-in dual subwoofers.
Yeah, the dual subwoofers were what caught my eye too.
Yeah.
Does that mean you don't need a separate subwoofer for this one?
That's the idea. Nice.
They're built right into the soundbar, so you can enjoy that deep rumbling bass without having to add another component to your setup.
And I'm guessing that makes a big difference for action movies and music with a lot of bass.
Absolutely, you'll feel that impact
Cool.
without needing any extra equipment.
So we've got the Bose focusing on that all-around immersive experience, even with older content, and the Sony emphasizing that powerful bass right out of the box. What else should we consider when we're comparing these two?
Well, integration with other devices is something a lot of people care about.
Right.
And the Sony plays particularly well with Sony's Bravia TVs.
Okay.
You can control the soundbar right from your TV's menu,
Nice.
and it syncs up for even better audio. So if you're already rocking a Sony TV,
Yeah.
the HTS-2000 might be the way to go.
It seems like a good match.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a Sony TV, it still offers Bluetooth and a USB port.
Yes.
So you can play music from like a flash drive.
Okay, that's good to know. So
Welcome back.
All right, so we talked about a lot of the tech behind these sound bars,
We did.
but now I really want to get into what it actually feels like to listen to these things.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Bose and its true space technology. How noticeable is that upmixing effect? Does it really make a difference for like non-Dolby Atmos content?
It's subtle, but definitely noticeable.
Oh,
Imagine you're watching an older movie
right,
and the sound is mostly coming from the front.
right.
With True Space, you'll start to hear those subtle ambient sounds and sound effects expanding outward, filling the room a bit more.
Right.
It won't be as dramatic as true Dolby Atmos,
Right.
but it does add a layer of depth and spaciousness.
So it's more like a gentle enhancement than a radical transformation.
Exactly. It's about making the soundstage wider and more immersive without being too artificial or distracting.
Okay.
And when you do play Dolby Atmos content,
Yeah.
the Bose really shines. Those up-firing transducers do a great job of creating that overhead sound.
Okay.
So you feel like you're in the middle of the action.
Now, what about the Sony and its approach? We
Uh-huh.
talked about how it uses those virtual surround technologies instead of upfiring speakers.
Right.
Does it create a similar sense of immersion?
It's a different kind of immersion. The Sony is less about pinpoint accuracy of sounds coming from above.
Right.
And more about creating a wider, more enveloping sound field.
Okay.
Like imagine you're sitting closer to the screen in a movie theater.
Yeah.
The sound is all around you, but not necessarily coming from specific points in the ceiling.
So less about those wow moments of a helicopter flying overhead and more about an overall feeling of being surrounded by sound.
Exactly. And a big part of that immersive feeling comes from the Sony's built-in dual subwoofers.
Oh, yeah.
Those things really pack a punch.
I want to talk more about that bass. I imagine it makes a big difference for like action-heavy movies and music with a strong beat.
Oh, absolutely. You feel the explosions, the rumble of engines, the thumping bass lines.
Cool.
It adds a visceral element to the listening experience that you just don't get with most compact soundbars.
And that's all without needing a separate subwoofer,
Right.
which is pretty impressive.
It simplifies the setup, keeps things clean and clutter-free. But it's also worth noting that some users have found the bass to be a bit too strong at times.
Too strong.
Yeah.
So it might be overwhelming for some people.
Possibly in smaller rooms.
Yeah.
Luckily, you can adjust the bass levels
Oh.
to fine-tune it to your liking.
All right, good to know. Now, I remember we touched on dialogue clarity earlier.
Yes.
How does the Sony handle that compared to the Bose with its AI dialogue mode?
The Sony does a decent job with dialogue,
Okay.
but it doesn't have that same level of focused clarity
Okay.
you get with the Bose.
Partner.
In complex sound mixes, especially during action scenes,
Yeah.
voices can sometimes get lost in the mix.
So if I'm someone who really prioritizes clear dialogue,
Yes.
the Bose might be the better choice.
It's definitely something to consider, especially if you watch a lot of movies or shows with a lot of dialogue-heavy scenes.
Okay, so we've talked about immersion in bass, but sound is so subjective.
Hmm.
Are there any other qualities that stand out to you when you're comparing these two soundbars?
One thing that struck me is the overall tonality.
Okay.
The Bose has a warmer, richer sound signature.
Warmer?
Yeah, it's like wrapping yourself in a cozy blanket of sound.
Okay.
The Sony, on the other hand, is brighter and more energetic.
So like listening to music on a crisp, clear morning versus a warm evening by the fireplace.
That's a great analogy.
I like that.
And neither is inherently better. It really comes down to your personal preference.
Right.
Do you prefer a more laid-back, immersive experience?
Okay.
Or something that's more punchy and in your face?
Yeah, I can see how both would have their appeal depending on what you're listening to and your mood.
Exactly.
And both soundbars have those preset sound modes we mentioned earlier. Do those make a big difference in the listening experience?
They definitely can.
Okay.
The Bose, for example, has its movie music dialogue and night modes.
Right.
And switching between them adjusts the audio processing to emphasize certain frequencies and create a more tailored experience.
So like a quick and easy way to optimize the sound for different types of content.
Exactly, and you can hear the difference.
Mhm.
Movie mode opens up the soundstage for a more cinematic feel,
Yeah.
while dialogue mode brings voices forward and reduces background noise.
What about the Sony? What kinds of sound modes does it offer?
Sony has a similar set of options, including cinema music game news and sports modes,
Wow.
along with its own voice mode for enhancing dialogue clarity.
Okay, so both give you a good amount of control over how the sound is presented.
They do.
Cool.
And beyond the preset modes, both soundbars allow you to tweak the bass and treble levels manually,
Okay.
so you can really fine-tune the sound to your liking.
I like options.
Yeah.
All these options are making me think about placement.
Yes.
We talked about how important it is for optimizing sound quality.
Absolutely.
Are there any specific placement tips for these soundbars?
Placement is crucial,
Yeah.
especially with a compact soundbar where every inch matters.
Right.
For the Bose, because of those up-firing transducers, it's best to place it directly in front of your TV,
Okay.
either on a shelf or mounted on the wall. You want to make sure those upward-firing speakers have a clear path to bounce sound off the ceiling.
So no tucking it away in a cabinet or behind other objects?
Not ideally.
Okay.
You'll lose some of that immersive effect.
All right.
The Sony, on the other hand, is a bit more flexible
Okay.
because it doesn't rely on up-firing speakers.
Right.
You can place it in a variety of positions without compromising the sound quality as much.
So if I have a more limited setup or I want to be able to move the soundbar around, Sony might be a better fit.
It could be.
Good.
But ultimately, the best placement for any soundbar depends on your room's acoustics
Right.
and your listening position.
Makes sense.
It's always a good idea to experiment a bit
Yeah.
and see what sounds best in your space.
Good advice. I think we've covered a lot of ground here
We have.
in terms of sound quality,
Yes.
features,
Yes.
placement. But we haven't talked about one crucial factor:
What's that?
price.
Yes, the budget factor. That's always an important consideration. Let's break down the pricing and see how these two stack up in terms of value.
Okay, so we've talked sound quality, features, placement tips, but at the end of the day, budget is a big factor for a lot of people. How do the Bose and the Sony compare when it comes to price?
Yeah, that's where things get interesting. As of today, the Bose Smart Dolby Atmos soundbar is retailing for around $499,
Okay.
while the Sony HTS-2000 comes in significantly lower at $298.
Wow, that is quite a difference.
Yeah.
Is the Bose really worth that much more?
Well, it depends what you're looking for. You know, the Bose is newer and has some of those advanced features we talked about, like True Space and the AI dialogue mode.
Right.
And it also integrates really well with other Bose products if you're already in that ecosystem.
But the Sony still delivers a lot for the price, especially with those built-in subwoofers.
Absolutely. You're getting powerful bass and a solid surround sound experience for a really competitive price. It's hard to beat that value.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how choosing between these two really comes down to priorities.
Yeah.
You know, if someone really values that immersive Dolby Atmos experience and crystal clear dialogue, maybe the Bose is worth the splurge. But if budget is a major concern and you're drawn to that punchy bass,
Yeah.
the Sony seems like a fantastic option.
Exactly. And remember, both soundbars are a huge upgrade over your TV's built-in speakers.
Oh, yeah.
So even if you go with the more budget-friendly Sony, you're still going to be blown away by the difference.
For sure. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about expanding these soundbars. Can you add components to either of them down the line?
Definitely both Bose and Sony offer expansion options, so you can start with the soundbar and then build out your home theater system over time.
Okay.
For the Bose, you can add the Bose Bass Module 500 or 700.
Okay.
For even more powerful bass, they also have wireless surround speakers that you can add for a true 5.1 surround sound setup.
So you can start with that immersive soundbar experience and then really go all out if you catch the home theater bug.
Exactly. And the Sony is similar, even though it has those built-in subwoofers. You can still add a separate wireless subwoofer if you want to shake the whole house.
Nice.
And they also have wireless rear speakers you can add for a more complete surround sound experience.
That's awesome. I love that flexibility.
So
So it's not an all or nothing decision up front.
yeah,
You can really customize based on your needs and your budget.
right. And as your needs change, your sound system can evolve with you.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything there is to know about these two compact soundbars.
Right.
Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
I think the key takeaway here is that there's no single best soundbar.
Right.
It really depends on what you're looking for in terms of sound quality, features, and price.
Yeah.
Both the Bose Smart Dolby Atmos soundbar and the Sony HTS-2000 offer incredible value and a significant upgrade to your TV's audio.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Do your research, consider your priorities, and most importantly, trust your ears.
And remember, technology is constantly evolving, so stay curious and keep exploring the world of audio.
All right, that's it for our deep dive into the world of compact soundbars.
Yeah.
If you are ready to upgrade your audio experience, be sure to check out the links in the description below for the latest prices and deals on both the Bose Smart Dolby Atmos soundbar and the Sony HTS-2000.
And don't forget to subscribe to Tech Talk Central for more deep dives into the world of tech. We're here to help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of gadgets and gizmos.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep those speakers booming.